Hello, care leaders. My guest today is Charles Cross, and today's topic is doing more with less using AI. For those of you who don't know Charles, not only is he the co-founder of Emma AI, he's also the director of a growing portfolio of home care businesses in Essex. If you haven't heard of Emma, it's a software tool that delivers personalised, predictive insights for better care outcomes using artificial intelligence. Interesting things that you can expect to learn from this episode include that worldwide, only 3% of available data is used in the care world, why and how Emma AI was developed and the products care organisations can now tap into, concrete examples of how Emma AI is being used to transform care organisations, and how AI can better connect NHS trusts, local councils and care providers to improve health and social care systems. Just so you know, I thought it would be worthwhile bringing to your attention that I'm actually an investor in Emma because I believe very strongly that what Charles and his team are doing with Emma is absolutely fantastic and will have a meaningful impact on the whole of the care sector. My name is Simon Parker, and this is the Care Leaders Network podcast. So, without further ado, please welcome Charles Cross. Charles, it's been a while since we caught up last. With the current challenges in the care sector, how do you see the sector progressing in 2025?
Yeah, Simon, it's always great to catch up. It has been a while, but you've been an important part of our journey with Emma. And we will explain a little bit more about that. But yeah, I think the social care sector is in a really interesting position at the moment. I think that with the priorities of the government at the moment, you've seen huge investments within the NHS. Historically, you've also seen huge investments within digital within social care. And now I think people are all accepting that we need a holistic review of what does our health and social care landscape look like. And with the paper that Baroness Casey has been commissioned, hopefully we'll get that. Now, there's definitely some questions over the timing of that. I think phase one is due in 2026. That's going to give some practical next steps of what the care sector can do to reform. And then the final paper being released in 2028. So again, it does feel like for the sector that the can's being kicked down the road. I think if you ask a lot of social care providers now, they need immediate action. We're facing challenges both from national minimum wage increases, which is going to increase the relative competitiveness of social care providers. And that's always difficult because that wage inflation is something with social care. We're obviously a people business, and we need to ensure that we're remunerating our team correctly. And I think social care as well, if you look over time, we're increasingly doing more clinical activities. So, for example, I know we were capturing innovation to accelerate improvement CQC report. I was involved in that. And we were actually using razor chairs to alleviate ambulance pressures, for example. So again, you can see how social care organisations are really helping the health service. I know Wes Treating came out and said that blood pressure monitoring should be done by social care providers, and also more home monitoring. So technology enabled care, for example. So you're seeing that social care providers are being asked to do more. I don't think the current funding is going to allow for many social care providers to do more. I think we're in this survival mode right now. That's not even including the national insurance increases. So if you really look at it, we're facing a lot of cost pressures. There's not so much acknowledgement of the changes in fees that are going to be required for that. I think the sector is really... It's had some benefits from the international recruitment, and I think you've seen that widespread adoption. But then the unintended consequences of that. I think in Essex alone, there was 2,000 displaced people, international workers who currently are without a sponsor. So you saw a lot of people come into the country, but there really needs to go through this process right now of ensuring that people who have come in are in the services that are delivering care, and those people are embedded. I think one of the key things around UK social care is actually we have really high standards, and each individual company that you speak to are always striving for excellent care. Now, that's not really helped when you also look at the CQC's role in all of this. And I think there's been some honest conversations from the CQC, and I think that's been really welcome from the sector. But with 60% of care providers either not having a rating or having a rating that's 4 to 8 years ago, you're seeing that, and therefore classified as out of date. 60% of care providers haven't really got a rating that the public can be sure about, or the public can really count on. And if that's the fundamental role of the regulator, then that's something that needs to be looked at. And with also the expanding remit of the CQC to local authorities, that's going to add pressure to their own workload. So really, social care providers at the moment are facing the cost pressures. They're facing uncertainty with fees. Their team have currently gone through the pandemic. We're away from the pandemic now. We had some surge funding to assist us to be able to deal with the spike in demands for our services. And I think local authorities are looking at care right now, especially in light of these changes within the NHS, and saying, how can we integrate and how can we work more collaboratively? And I think this is a long overdue shift in focus. And I think many local authorities are doing really well in pioneering new strategies in order to bring together their own internal teams and the care providers. But you have to remember also, within the last sort of 8 years, there's been a huge surge, a 5.5 times increase in the amount of care providers. So from around 2,500 to 12,500 plus. So again, you're seeing a lot of entrants into the market, some with less experience in doing so. Now they're facing the cost pressures. Many of those organizations are actually much smaller, so they won't be able to do the necessary investments into technology. And I'm sure we'll get onto technology and the role that has to play within all of this. But also they're just trying to survive, and they're trying to deliver good care. And especially when you look out in the community, and there's been that shift from hospital out into the community, it's really around how can you build capacity and resilience. And that's always a really difficult thing, especially when you're looking at redirecting your resources as a care provider to the front line to attract and retain the best talent. I think there's also been many challenges within the social care sector of standardizing competencies and training, for example. We had the care certificate, and I think that's widely adopted now. However, the inconsistency in which that's being delivered, again, brings differences between different care providers. And I think when you speak to families around the decision, and often it's in a crisis, of putting one of your relatives into social care, you want to ensure that that care provider is safe, effective, has quality care, and is going to keep you in the loop. So it's really important as a care provider to ensure that we're adopting all of the new technologies that can keep the family in the loop, that can interface with local authorities, interface with the NHS, and hopefully the pathways in which people take from health to social care, which currently feels completely disjointed. I mean, many people going out in the community into hospital and then into a residential care home or supporting living facility will find that they're going through multiple organizations. Their data is being shared in the back end, often through sending across discharge to assess forms or individual service plans, and there's no joined up back end of this data. And we'll speak to how we can overcome that with AI, but the sector right now obviously needs more funding, and we can lobby for that as a sector, and we definitely should. I think the petition around ensuring that care providers don't actually have the increase in national insurance was a good one, and it's a shame the government didn't take the opportunity to do that. And I think in light of that, that is stunting and spooking investment within the sector. As we discussed right at the top, we're a people business. So a lot of our business is around ensuring that we have the right people in the right roles and have enough resilience within our organizations. And that is being made harder at the moment. And it means investment within your company has become a lot more of a challenging discussion. So I think the social care sector as a whole is facing a multitude of different challenges. We're trying to increase the amount of value we can provide to the system as a whole. But one of the best things is we're always open, we're always willing, we're always enthusiastic. I think forums like the Care Leaders Network are fantastic in bringing people together. I've been to many of your conferences, Simon, to many of the events, and I think the more that we can do that and share our collective story about what it's like to actually deliver social care services, I think will be better for everyone.
It seems like the government implicitly is sending a message of you need to do more with less. That's kind of almost, if you were to read in between the lines, if you thought that they were strategic enough to sit down and kind of think to themselves, right, okay, so what's the message, not the headlines message, but the message we need to get to care providers. Fundamentally, it seems do more with less. And obviously there's all sorts of different reasons around that. But that's not wanting to get into the politics landscape and kind of some of the decision making and things that's gone on, because that's a whole conversation within of itself. That seems to be the prevailing sentiment, albeit again that's not the thing that kind of makes the headline. So your world, of course, is multifaceted in as much as the fact that you operate both as a care provider and then also as a co-founder of a tech company. So you have this really unique insight that I always enjoy our conversations, because you can look at it from both sides of the coin, to be able to understand it. Okay, so how can we use technology to be able to do more with less? How can we drive efficiencies? How can we make sure that you were talking about building the capacity and the resilience within the team, being able to get rid of unnecessary administrative processes and the burden of things that care providers have to shoulder just to be able to go out there and do their absolute best to deliver absolutely fantastic care in a world of endless headwinds. It'll be interesting to get into the conversation around how you see things as it stands today, because I think the last time we talked about this was a little while ago. The care sector's moved on. I'm sure that Emma has moved on as well. So, do you want to talk a little bit about Emma as a business, a little bit about the journey just before we get into the world? Because I think it's just important to frame using your own words, because I know what it does, but I'll want to hear it from the horse's mouth as such. So frame Emma as a concept to begin with, and then let's get into the detail around how you see that evolving to help fundamentally with this really significant problem of try and do more with less.
I completely agree with your analysis on it, Simon. That's clear. It seems the government is seeing how social care can play a part in the future, but for now it seems that we're waiting again for what does that look like. I know there was talk of the National Care Service, but again, what does that look like? And I don't think there's been much clarity really there. With regards to Emma, we started it because I ran a care company and we knew of the technology, large language models, which have completely proliferated the consumer market. You saw GPT, for example, being the fastest growing consumer technology product. I think it even outpaced TikTok, outpaced previous social media. And one of the main fundamental reasons I believe that is the case is because it's so inclusive to use. It's so intuitive. We use natural language when texting family and friends, and people felt that having that conversational interface is probably one of the easiest ways to interact with data rather than click on blue links, for example. And I think that was so obvious to people once it had come out. So really the story with Emma was, okay, how can we harness that technology and bring this into social care, but not do this 5 years down the line, not do this 10 years down the line, which is what we did with digital. How do we do this right at the outset? So to give some background and a bit of the story around Emma, we had a workshop with the Care Leaders Network. We had 15 executives in the room. We went into the background technology of AI, large language models, how they work, and we asked them, what would make your organizations more efficient? What would be helpful? We then had our MVP product that we launched on 30th of November, again in partnership with the Care Leaders Network. And there we found that we released our Emma Core product. Emma Core was a conversational interface, much like many of the large language models that you'd interact with as a consumer. There's different safeguards required within social care data, such as zero data retention policies with foundational models. That's not something that comes. So you have to remember, if you are a social care provider right now and you're using GPT, or you're using Gemini, you're using Claude, you need to ensure that you're not using just a public access of that, because that data can be used for training. So it's really important that you have the zero data retention policy right at the outset. And then more than that is what guardrails are required to actually adopt this technology within social care, because we know that we cannot afford to have any mistakes, or we can harness the nuances of the social care data, but we need to ensure we've got 100% accuracy within synthesizing this information and triangulating it. I think the North Star, from what we've seen through implementation, is augmenting people with AI. So we're not replacing people. I think if you look at it, we've got over 150,000 vacancies within the sector. So if some of those can be assisted with using AI, that's really, really important. But going back to Emma is allowing companies, we work in deep partnership with social care organizations to augment not just their business processes. And we'll get onto this, because this is the transition and story that we've seen at Emma, but not just the business processes internally, but also what does it look like in terms of the wider system. So we launched Emma Core. Emma Core was the conversational interface, 24/7 support tool for our care team. We saw a 59% reduction in out-of-hours calls to our HQ, our head office, and that obviously improved support for the team outside of those times. It also provided support to the on-call services. And then we found that people were asking questions, but we could go one step further. And actually, if you look at it, Microsoft estimates we only use 3% of healthcare data worldwide. And why is that? Well, it's because it's in natural language. Previously, if you look at analyzing information, and we can all do that in terms of numbers and finance, but we can't do that historically with natural language. And if you think about what a care visit is, you provide the care and then you normally document it using natural language. So normally on one of your digital social care record platforms. So, and then what's done with that information? So now with many care providers adopting digital social care records, we have the information stored digitally in natural language of every care visit interaction that happens within your organization. So then what do we do with it? Well, normally we will highlight, pinpoint key aspects, key visits, and normally that's actually triggered by safeguards, incidents, complaints. But what if we could have a preventative or a predictive analysis on the care that's being delivered and anything that you as an organization need to respond to? So then what we did was, through Emma Core, we started sending preventative and predictive insights of the last, let's say, 7 days worth of historic care delivery. And right at the moment that care worker is going to be attending that visit, we can send them, what is the update on the pressure sore? What is the update on that person's mental and physical health? They might be on antibiotics. They may be having differences to their medication. They may have their family and friends visiting. That might be, something that's improved their mood. They maybe have had a social interaction visit, and they may have gone out into the community. How did that affect them? They may have differences to their hydration and nutrition. How did that affect them? And how did change, and then changes in their routine? They may have had a review, an increase and decrease in their care. And so how does that improve, or where can we improve the care based on that historic care delivery? So we started sending these predictive insights. And we did that really at the start of the visit, and we did that at the start of someone's shift, and we did that for the initial 2 people within that round. And the only feedback we got is, can we have that for everyone? Because what we found was, if you do a care plan and you do an assessment, and you may be reassessing that person's care from 1 month, 3 months, or 6 months, depending on your own organization, that's great, but that's a snapshot. That's a snapshot in time where that person was in a certain mood and they had certain physical abilities at that time. So they may have been having a good day, for example. But where can we go one step further in using all of the information that we've been collecting over the previous 7 days and actually give that to the care worker to give them the relevant information of actually what's been working well recently? So Emma Core was really around that, and we've seen some great feedback and engagement, and that's continued to be used within our organization. And then one step further, we released Emma Generation and Emma Analytics. Emma Generation has the ability to digest both voice. I think this is a really important point. We, especially in light of AI and large language models and natural language processing, how can we use voice more? Because again, the fluidity in which we speak and the detail and nuances that we can capture through voice. And you only have to see this by now when you jump into a meeting, there's normally an AI assistant that jumps on with you. You can see that there's so much value in being able to capture a conversation and not just a few key bullet points that you have to be typing in. So initially you've got voice for Emma Generation, but then you've also got, okay, what does consistency of documentation look like? Could you have AI as a safety net that can review all of the information you hold on someone and ensure it's consistent, flag any concerns that you may have, or highlight the best practice that you need to be ensuring that you're delivering to make sure that person's outcomes are being met? So Emma Generation was really around care planning initially, and we were asked by a client to do that, and we've built that product, and that's available to people today. And then one of the most exciting products is Emma Analytics. And really what that is around partnering with social care organizations. It's using their natural language data that they have within their organization. Many social care organizations have a patchwork quilt worth of digital technologies now. We've gone from all paper to digital to solve this problem, digital to solve that problem, digital, and we're not bringing it all together in one place. And I think if you ask many social care providers, they're facing this challenge where they want everything in one place. So Emma Analytics is able to provide integrations across your systems and bring that into one place. And then what can you do with that? So we run and we have trained and we have experience with large language models now for over 18 months. I think it's quite promising, and the Labour are coming out and saying, how can we make the UK the center point, the epicenter of AI? I have a reservations around, is that going to be applicable to the application layer or the foundational model layer? I know that they want to build their own foundational model. I think, again, if you look at some of the investment that these technology firms have put into this, the foundational models seem to be, they're a lot more productive, they're a lot more accurate over time, and that's going to continue. But if I go back to Emma Analytics, so we partner with social care organizations. We use large language models to run through all of their natural language processing. We use natural language processing to run through all of their natural language within their systems, and then we augment their business processes with AI. So what does that mean? So, for example, within our own organizations, we have 6 months review of someone's care. We have 6 months review of someone's team members' performance, for example. We have medication audit processes that within our organization. We look at visit note audits. We look at the visit notes that have happened previously and ensure that we're auditing them and ensuring that we're recording every information that's required, especially to support further reviews. And if you look at every single one of these processes, if we go into those meetings, we go into those reviews, having analyzed 6 months worth of care delivery, 6 months worth of how that person's performed. The AI has done that. It's given you that form and that internal communication and process that you need. And you just go into that meeting, record the meeting. And by the end of the meeting, you've augmented not only the recording of the meeting, but you augmented the last 6 months worth of performance or care delivery. And then you have your complete form that's based in fact, that's based in your own data. And that person's it's taken that person, 1/4 or 1/5 of the time to actually do that process. So you can see that we have so many processes within our social care organization. And then that's not even to mention, I'm suppose we'll talk about this, but how do we then interface with the regulator? How do we interface with our commissioning bodies? And what requirements do we have there? So you can see that if you give your team Emma Analytics, you'll be able to save tangible time. You'll be able to give managerial bandwidth. And in a time where you need to do more with less, actually having an AI first product that is analyzing all of your data consistently and then producing what you need to internally and externally, you can see that that's going to save vast amount of time across your organization, especially at scale.
What I was thinking about when you were describing all of that is, I remember looking at a care home. I was having a conversation with the owner of this particular care home, and I was actually in talks around buying that particular business. Never happened for one reason or another. But I remember being with the gentleman that owned the business on a Friday afternoon, and he was running payroll, and it was all paper based, and he was sat there scribbling, and he kind of intimated to me that I would have to basically learn this process from him, so that if I did buy the business, that would be kind of part of my responsibility to make sure that everyone got paid on time. And I remember sat there thinking, I'm going to have a bookkeeper and a piece of software that just does all of this. There's absolutely no way in hell that if I buy this business that's going to be something I'm going to be doing, because that type of stuff can be automated. Now, the way I see this is that in the eventuality of time, and it'll be really interesting to see how quickly this is adopted, whereas people in leadership and management roles in care services at the moment are getting ready for their weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual meetings about fill in the blank, whatever the set of circumstances might be, and they're investing hours, maybe even days of time into the preparation, the analysis of all of this data, so that they can have meaningful conversations when it comes to the board meeting or whatever the nature of the meeting might be. Why would I bother doing all of that when it can just be done by tech? That I envisage that same mindset within the accountancy world, within the aggregation of all of these data points. Because just why would you? There's going to be a piece of tech out there that can do all of that augmentation, that aggregation, to be able to present it in a meaningful way where people can genuinely get to grips with what's going on in their business. And it won't take hours. So in the context of the whole doing more with less thing, and in a world of endless headwinds, having access to that type of insight and foresight, of course, because that's the kind of the next level with all of this as well. How can you start being predictive? How can you start making more data-driven decisions off the back of not historic data but forecasted data? That I can't even imagine what that means once that starts to become more widely adopted from an efficiency, from a productivity, from a overall quality of care delivery perspective. There's a lot in there, of course, to get your teeth into, but it's big and it's meaningful, and I think it will be genuinely profound to see how that plays out over time.
I completely agree. And I think the points in which we need to intervene within someone's care are going to be highlighted by AI more than likely, way before than we could be able to connect the dots of all of the information that we have. So if we can intervene at an earlier stage, change the care that we're delivering, then does that reduce hospitalization? I think it does. And then we look at, okay, so once we've got the preventative and predictive insights, how can we change that future care delivery? And then it's a feedback loop, right? So you have the future care delivery funneling back through to Emma. we've spent the last 18 months now with an evaluation framework on the accuracy, the context recall, the reliability, and we have a human in the loop, so an internal Emma quality assurance expert that has social care expertise, actually analysing the information that we're producing off the back of the specific architecture we have, which involves guardrails and safeguards in using large language models within social care data. So yeah, I think the way in which social care is delivered in light of AI is going to be very different. It's not going to feel different to the service user, the person actually receiving the care, but the actual team delivering the care and the back office team, the management team, are going to have a complete shift, and hopefully they can have more of their time back. They can actually spend more time with the individuals receiving care, and I think that's the North Star for everyone running a care organisation.
You know, I always end up sharing geeky things to do with my long COVID recovery, right? So one of the investments that I've made is in a thing called an 8 Sleep, which is basically it's like the geekiest heated mattress you could possibly imagine. So it's a mattress topper, but what it does is it basically calibrates to your body to make sure that you're in the optimum temperature, because your body should be cooler as you sleep, and then as you wake up, it should be warmer. So it basically gets to understand the dynamics of what's happening in your body. It can understand how stressed you are. It can understand all of these incredible insights and things, but it draws upon your layers of data from nights upon nights worth of sleep. But then it also draws upon the tens, if not maybe even now hundreds of thousands of other 8 Sleep users, collecting all of that data and then presenting it in a really, really useful way. And it'll tell me I need to go to bed a little bit earlier, or it'll tell me that it reduced my temperature in the middle of the night to help increase the length of my REM sleep, or any of these different bits and pieces. And I mean, it's so easy to use. I basically don't think about it. It just gives me these little updates and bits and pieces that I need to factor into my day. But it helps me course adjust, and I know the quality of my sleep's probably increased. Well, I know because it's told me specifically, but by 10% over the time that I've had it, which I don't think there isn't a single person in the world that wouldn't like 10% better sleep. You know, it doesn't matter whether you've got great sleep or whether you've got awful sleep. That 10% is going to make a big old difference. And I use that as an example because it's super, super simple. I really, really don't have to think about it. It's made a meaningful impact on my health and my well-being and my long COVID recovery and all of that type of stuff. And yeah, it was an investment, but it's proven to be a really worthwhile investment. I go in hotels now and I'm just like, oh, I haven't got an 8 Sleep. Like, what am I going to do? Because I'm so used to having it as an integrated part of my life. And that type of tech's only going to get better and better over time. So I guess that's actually made me think about a question in that regard. So does the Emma tool now, from an analytics perspective, you can obviously draw upon your own data sets, but is it currently in a position where you can, obviously in a GDPR appropriate way, does it have the ability to be able to draw from macro insights as well and kind of blend that into the insights that it's presenting from a insight and from a foresight perspective? Or is that kind of part of the development roadmap? Help me understand what that part of the product looks like at the moment.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think we definitely embed some of our training within NICE guidelines. So that's really vital in terms of medication. One of the processes that we've augmented with AI is a medication audit form. So Emma, within seconds, can analyze 250 visits that happen. It can highlight any of the key correlations within that person's medication, the time in which they've taken the medication, how that's affected that person's behavior. And then after that, it can even say a risk level. So based on the NICE guidelines, it can say the risk level of how that person's medication's actually been administered. And then it can automatically then produce the email and all of the audit records that you need internally for the CQC or for your team to be able to then publish that audit that's been completed. And end to end, that takes less than 5 minutes. So you could never analyze 250 visits and all of the requirements within that and the nuances of different medication within 5 minutes. So you can see just a tangible impact of large language models and AI within a care organization, within that one business process alone. Do we go one step further and look at macro information, not in terms of people? I think one of the key things within AI and natural language processing is noise. How much information do you actually want to give that's specific to the individual or specific more broadly to many individuals? And again, you mentioned a really important point about being GDPR compliant. We're SOC type 1 and 2 compliant as well. And we're ensuring that each person's information is ring fenced and each organization's is ring fenced. And you don't want to actually increase the data beyond that too much, because then you bring in noise that might not be directly applicable to that individual. So there's a lot of cautionary steps that we take, and we've learned this over time when implementing this technology. Could we use some more background information? You can, when you're looking at analysis and supporting your team from an organizational standpoint. So, what are the details of safeguards that have happened, complaints that have happened, and how does that relate to the wider sector? Is this something that the sector is facing? But in terms of individual profiling, as you've sort of alluded to within your own experience, that individual profiling of people, it's actually best that we go from a point of not really analyzing too much of this historic care delivery to analyzing all of it and actually building up that profile for that individual and then giving those key insights for that individual, rather than adding the noise of any additional data points that might not be directly relevant. So it's about adopting this technology, but doing it in an extremely responsible way. And I think one of the key focuses that we have with Emma, and you can see this within our products, is visibility and transparency. So within each audit that we have, within each business process that we augment with AI, we actually under each answer have C sources. So you can actually click through C sources, see the exact snippet that Emma's used, or the multitude of snippets, because we're talking over many tens of thousands of data points. So we have the key highlighted data points that Emma's using and the AI is using in order to get to your end goal. So whether that be a business process, whether that be an insight direct to the care team, and you can actually verify that yourself by just clicking a button. So we need to ensure that we've got that visibility and transparency for the individual, and we need to ensure when it comes to data security and the responsibility of adopting this technology, we take that extremely seriously as well.
Got it. No, that makes sense. I mean, you can definitely overdo it when it comes to insights. Like the best technology platforms out there just give you what you want and nothing else. Nobody needs any more noise. The whole point of this, of course, is to try and make life easier and less complex. Overdoing it could be a hindrance to that. So that makes sense. The care providers themselves, of course, they're not the only part of the social care world landscape as well. Talk to me about NHS trusts and local councils, and how does the whole ecosystem come together more coherently using AI?
This is probably, in addition to Emma Analytics, which I think is going to be the new paradigm shift of running a social care organization. I think that's just inevitable, that a technology like this will be able to assist your team in running a social care organization in spite of the challenges that we face. And I think that's going to give us, it's going to alleviate us and give our team the bandwidth to be able to focus on delivering care. So putting that aside, I would say one of the most impactful and exciting parts of AI is really around stakeholder engagement, is really around the connection between the NHS and local authorities. I think this is easiest to explain through an analogy. I once heard that if you were traveling from London, for example, down to Italy, let's say Rome, you're passing through French airspace, Swiss airspace, and then into Italian airspace. But as a consumer, you fly on a plane, you get on the plane and you land, and there you are, you're on your holiday. So you don't experience any of this back-end security, back-end process that needs to go in order to get you to your destination. You just experience that plane journey and then you land. And we all know, barring passport control, how easy that can be. Now, if you think about that in a health and social care context, if you pass from a hospital into social care services, you might go through 3 different organizations, you might go through 5 different assessments, And each one of those assessments are capturing different information. And the previous assessment often is not correlated to the next assessment. So we're not all going off of the same hymn sheet. We're not all going off of the same information. We're not sharing information in even a responsible way. I think you've seen many articles around the use of different communication channels that maybe aren't secure. You're also seeing a lot of PDFs being sent around, Word documents about these assessments, but nothing's really bringing it all together. So part of our journey at Emma was both being on the Innovation Fellowship for Mid and South Essex Integrated Care System, so the NHS, and we've got some fantastic insight into that, the different pathways out of a hospital, and what does that data look like, and which organizations are involved in that. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about district nurses, OTs, physiotherapists, SALT teams, mental health teams. So there's so many multidisciplinary teams that are involved in someone's care. But how often are we bringing all of that data together? And until we do, it's going to feel like different services when that person moves from hospital to maybe a reablement service, maybe into a respite or step down service, and then out into the community or residential care. And if we're doing unique assessments at each point of that, we're going to be picking up on different things and therefore delivering different care. So the integration of health and social care can actually only be possible when we have the integration of data behind it. I know there's efforts to do that, but we were also really pleased to be able to be chosen by the local government association as part of their innovation showcase. We were one of 3 social care innovators to be able to present our solution. And to give you a quick headline on that, so there's 250,000 people awaiting a Care Act assessment today. And that Care Act assessment currently being completed is normally either via telephone or via face-to-face meeting. And that's not, again, taking into consideration that person staying in hospital, not taking into consideration any of the step-down care or reablement care. So I think when we actually proposed our solution, which is we can integrate into the digital social care records to give you that information of how that person's doing. You can phone for the local authorities who want to adopt this. You can actually phone via the Emma system, so that phone transcripts being taken into consideration, and you can also voice memo any notes you have on the individual. So you can take the immediate care that's being delivered post discharge into consideration. You can take the care plan that maybe the care provider or the local authorities completed. You can take the phone call that you have it with the individual, or the recording of the face-to-face meeting, and within a click of a button, you can have a Care Act assessment. I mean, that's talking of reducing the time in which social workers take to assess someone from 6 hours down to 1. So we're seeing a huge reduction in the administrative burden, a huge alleviation of their workload. We know case management is clear with 250,000 people. I think there was 8,700 people awaiting an assessment and staying in hospital in 2023. So you can see that this problem is huge. And how that interlinks with Emma is because if you've got a Care Act assessment that's been completed by the local authorities, and then that can then filter through via integration and AI into your digital social care record, you could see a seamless pathway straight from the point of discharge to the point of care delivery from that care organisation, and every organisation in between being considered within the future care delivery. So all of those multidisciplinary teams that I just talked about. So you can upload the physio report, you can upload the OT report. And this is something that we got incredible response from. We're already in discussions with local authorities around this. And I think that this is, again, another step change of how AI can take a centralized database or about that individual and be able to ensure that the local authorities are meeting their regulatory and statutory requirements, and then also the care providers are. And then you can see how that interlinks with Emma Analytics and being able to filter that Care Act assessment through, and then saving the care provider time. So really, and then if you can go, then if you look at the regulatory environment as well, so this is not something we've currently done, but we've engaged with the CQC. If you look at our own inspections, we were outstanding and well-led for innovation. We got outstanding for well-led under the previous framework, both citing the adoption of MRAI. And I think that if you then take your social care organization and you've got to do provider information returns for the CQC, you've got to do key performance indicators for your commissioning bodies, all of these contractual arrangements and also regulatory, you could have the CQC via AI actually delving into your system, producing the PIR, or you producing the PIR via AI and just sending that straight to the regulator. So you could see how now with this adoption of digital technologies, we now have the opportunity. I mean, you can speak about we've now adopted digital. Are we done? Is this it? And to then speak about what I've just done with the regulator, with your external stakeholders, the commissioning bodies internally, about managerial bandwidth and freeing up your team's time and augmenting your processes with AI, you can see that actually we're just at the start. We're just at the start of all of this. And it doesn't matter whether it's you communicating with the local authority or your team. If you augment with AI, you can save tangible time, which is going to be a requirement under these macroeconomic conditions. And then when there's the integration between health and social care, you can see how AI really has to be at the center of that as well.
You're a fantastic evangelist for Emma, and I think a lot of that comes from your experience within the care sector. Like, this is a real thing for you. It's not that you're just building a product, trying to find a problem and then building a product around it. You're living and breathing this up every day, which I think, again, back to my point around you having that unique insight, I think the development of the product is really testament to your own experience of doing this and just being able to integrate the operations of the care organization and then also the technology itself. There will be lots of people thinking about adopting new technology, people who are going through the process of improving things. I think probably the people that are going to be most interested in an AI platform and the people who are reasonably technically savvy. They've got some reasonable level of sophistication. And there will, of course, be people who are pretty gung-ho, they just want to get out there and use AI to the best of their abilities and things. Other people, maybe not so much. So what are the common things you're coming up in regards to, maybe if people have concerns around operational change or doing away with care workers, which I know isn't part of it, but it's kind of almost part of the zeitgeist, isn't it? Unfortunately, around these type of things. What are the key areas that you end up talking to people about around why people might not want to integrate AI into the way that they operate, and how do you talk around those particular subjects? Because of course people will be thinking, yeah, but fill in the blank, whatever the reason is why they might not want to undergo this process yet, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's shifting, which is actually a really interesting point, is that within the last, let's say, 3 or 4 months, we're seeing a lot of inbound discussions around how can we actually change our organization? What does our organization look like in light of AI? Going back to your point around us coming from a care provider's perspective, our feedback loop is just so tight to our development. I think for so long, some technology partners within social care aren't listening sufficiently to the customers that they have. And I think as the concentration of care providers that have adopted digital technology increases, the competition landscape has gotten stronger within technology companies that are servicing social care providers, and therefore they're listening to customers more. So that is improving over time. We have a unique position that we can have direct access to frontline care teams. But the change management piece, I think, is a really, really important one. But I think the sector has had the experience of doing this through digital. So a lot of people are much more open than they've ever been with regards to adopting new technology. It does require leadership at the top end to be able to say that this is something that's going to push us forward. And just like it was with digital, I mean, we've been doing this for 18 months and have had products in situ and have been able to ensure that we're bringing the best in class AI products to social care organization, which is a unique position in itself. But I think some care providers, or many now, are seeing that this is an inevitability.
Just thinking about people who are contemplating the prospect of integrating AI into the way that they operate as an organization. And you're not going to get people who are the kind of the late adopter type people, the people who are maybe a little bit less sophisticated with digital transformation, being really interested in this because they almost haven't made the first couple of steps. This is obviously something that's typically for people who have got a good tech stack who want to take things, to the next level. But there will be reasons why people aren't completely sold on doing the idea maybe yet. Maybe they've got some concerns. There's always that thing kind of, are we going to replace care workers, and what about, I don't know, there's a few different things. Talk to me about that, because there will of course be a landscape of I don't know, let's call it skepticism. Maybe that's a bit of a kind of an overly intense word, but the reasons why people might be thinking, yeah, this is great. But talk to me about the types of conversations that you have with people who have got enough of an interest to explore things, but they just haven't made that move yet to be able to benefit from the overall improvements in productivity and efficiency and everything that they might otherwise have having integrated this type of tech.
Yeah, I think just a really important point to note is this is changing. I think AI and the adoption of AI within our lives has meant that we're actually seeing a lot of inbound conversations right now around what does my organization look like if I were to adopt Emma, if I were to adopt AI. And I think with our North Star of augmenting people with AI and not replacing anyone, they're seeing that actually it can save time, can save costs, and it can allow us to spend more time with the individuals receiving care. I think change management is a really important point of this, and leadership and digital leadership. I think there's been a lot of focus as well on how can we lead with the technologies we've now adopted. But many of these technologies maybe don't meet our needs. And this is why we take a unique approach within Emma, and we partner with organizations. We understand their businesses deeply, and then we're looking to augment their team individually and make sure that our technology is custom to how that business actually runs, which is very different. When you look at historically technologies within social care, the feedback loop, you've mentioned previously our unique position where we've got the experience of being a care provider. Our feedback loop to our product development is so tight that we're able to actually provide technology products that work and that are engaged within organizations. And that feedback loop has meant that we're actually able to provide value at a much earlier stage in our development than many other technology providers. And we want to work as closely with other people's teams as we do with our existing customers. And then moving on, it's really important that within the adoption of AI, we do it in a responsible way. We do it in a safe way. As I've previously mentioned, the visibility and transparency is vital. The black box system of large language models is no longer with the Emma platform. We have explainability across all of our products, which means that you can, in a click of a button, verify how the AI has got to its answer. This is really important. And I think that the natural characteristics of using natural language means that it's easy to use the Emma platform. And that's one thing. When you adopt new technology, often within social care, you're having to go through training plans, launch plans, and project plans of how do I actually adopt this and how do I bring my team up to speed. But when you're using an AI first product and it's using natural language and you can have a conversation with it, you can retrieve any information right at the click of a button, or even through voice. It makes it so much easier that actually people want to adopt this and therefore they're engaged. In addition to that, when we're discussing management and leadership, I think it's important that we're future-proofing our business. So what does our business look like in 2 to 5 years? And does that include having AI within that? And if someone were to ask that same question in 2018, 2019, 2020, I think 2020 it was disproportionately accelerated due to COVID. But 2018 and 2019, it seemed to be a choice. Did you want to be paper? Did you want to be digital? And then soon in 21, 22, 23, there was no choice. You have to be digital in order to maintain your standards of care delivery, but also ensure that you're operating in a safe and effective way and being responsive to the needs of the people that you care for. You had to adopt digital. Now, looking 2 to 5 years from now, we will have the same questions. We can think about being, as you say, skeptical, or people may have their own reservations, but we need to look at the specific use cases that AI can improve and help with. We need to have a sensible discussion around data sharing and permissions and consent. I think this is a really important point. At one of our the recent health investor conference, I was speaking and asked the idea of, can we have transferable consent? Just in the same way that you opt in and out with many other data sharing points within your consumer life, could we have that within health? And I think giving people more control over where their data is stored and where it's held and how that can improve the care that's being delivered would actually be a really good thing. I mean, I don't think we're ready for it yet. I think we need more standards around data. And actually, if you look at why is AI so important when it's connecting and integrating health and social care, the flexibility of using AI to connect systems is a complete paradigm shift to what we had previously. So, but we do need to have that conversation around how can we embed this within our team? How can we get our team on board adopting this technology? And I think if you can show tangible value to your team and that it's improving their work life, then they will adopt it, because why wouldn't they? So we just need to ensure that in rolling out and we're doing that incrementally, and we're doing that with everyone's support. Co-production is a word that's been around in social care for a long period of time. I think within technology, that's been extremely important. And I think now more than ever, when it comes to AI and building products, especially at scale for larger organizations that are looking to implement AI, and they can do today with Emma, how can you bring your team with it, and how can you co-produce the technology with your technology partner that means it's actually going to work for the individuals within your organization. And I think when it comes to service users and family members, that access to information and the responsiveness of you as a care provider, they'll see the improvements in care delivery. So I think this is a necessary step. I think the social care sector, we are maturing from a digital perspective. And I think we're now at the point where we're used to actually adopting new technologies. Change is the only constant really within social care, even though some would argue not so much the case in terms of the government's eyes. But I would say individually, we're doing everything we can in order to adopt and integrate new ways of working. And we've actually seen that people are excited. People actually appreciate within care organizations that are adopting Emma that they're doing something in order to help their team and give their team time back and reduce down their workload. And really, once you prove that, I think that the adoption of new technology becomes far, far easier. And actually, you have everyone on side. And I don't think we can ask for more than that.
Well, that's definitely true. You touched briefly upon the whole management and leadership ecosystem, if you like, around how you infuse that for an AI enhanced future. Let's call it. What do you think that means at the moment, and what do you think that means as the ongoing development of the product and the AI landscape as a whole? How does that evolve over time?
I think there's been huge evolutions even to date within our own products. As I've mentioned, we started off with Emma Core and Emma Generation, Emma Analytics, and also produced that product for local authorities because of the link and need for integration between health and social care. If you look at the foundational models, they're improving in terms of their efficiency. The cost is being reduced. That means that you can, through the Emma platform, which is a social care specific AI, you're able to analyze all of the historic care delivery that you've received with the safeguards that we've put in place and the guardrails. So now if you get to the point that AI is reviewing all of your information and data, bringing it into a centralized point and then producing exactly what you want, not 80% of what you want, but exactly what you want in order to augment your business process, then you could see that the way that the operational framework that you currently exist under is going to change in light of AI. And where is this all going? I think that voice and having an assistant to be able to support frontline care delivery, but then also to support managers, and then also to support any directors or business owners about their own business and what they need, what their role entails. So, for example, as I've mentioned before, the internal and external stakeholders, you'll see almost specific AI assistants within certain roles that can be augmented with these people within your organization, which can mean that they can do 50% more, they can do 80% more, they could do 150% more, dependent on the value in which AI can provide within each individual role. And that differs, right? So frontline care delivery will remain frontline care delivery, and we need those hardworking men and women who go out every day, and whether it's the snow that's recently happening or over the festive period, these people are dedicated, they're compassionate, and we should take our hats off to them every day. So these people are vital to our sector. But then if you look at also the management team that you have and the processes that you have within your organization, we can augment that with AI. And when you do that, your team will have more time back. And that's a really important point. And I think the leadership now of many organizations that we're speaking to are embracing it. They are realizing that this is the next shift in technology, and they want to have that within their organization. And I think this is going to be a fundamental shift that will happen over the next 2 to 5 years. And as that's happening, and you can implement these tools now, and the more that you can embed them now, just like with digital, the better that your organization will perform. And then how does that interlink with the NHS and local authorities? We've discussed this, but you could really see a wider picture and a wider discussion of someone's pathways in and out of health and social care, and that become a lot more seamless and a lot more efficient. And I think that's exactly what this government wants. They want to see more people within social care, out in the community, receiving high quality care. And then you can take into consideration as well the technology enabled care, the remote monitoring. Where does that data feed back to? How can we provide predictive and proactive insights into that in light of all of the other data we hold? And then you can see AI basically being the center of your organization, orchestrating and assisting your organization in delivering high quality